If you're a tightrope walker, but there's a big safety net underneath, I mean, you're going to still be trying hard because you don't want to fall. But if there's no safety net, you're going to be trying really hard.
Right. There's no coming back.
You're going to die. If, the safety nets are bad. They make it so you're not putting as much in. Put it all in, put it all on the line, or don't do it at all.
Which I know people are going to be like, I already did that and I got burned. And it's like, okay, then don't take risk anymore. You can't want to get married then again if you're not going to do it the way that it's supposed to be done.
Beyond the perfect we discover, through our flaws we complete each other. Better than perfect we stay, through every fault we find our way.
All right, welcome back to the Better Than Perfect podcast, where every week we share with you how two imperfect people helping each other grow equals one better than perfect relationship.
That's right.
Yeah. And what episode are we on now? It's like 50. Oh, is this 52?
I don't know.
Might be 52.
I just posted 48.
Yeah, 48. So 49, 50.
Or is it 51?
It might be 51, I think, because at 52, we got to say something about it. We'll have to check. I think next one will be 52, because 52 is 1 year.
But I thought we started in the beginning of December.
We did, but we buffered a bunch of episodes.
Oh, yeah. You're right.
So somehow we're at... I don't know. I mean, we just published 48. So
yeah,
49, 50, 51, 52. So
time isn't real.
But yeah, 52 episodes. But I mean, we'll talk about that next time because
it'll be 52.
Then it'll actually be a year. So.
Yeah, true.
Hard to believe.
I can't. Yeah, that's really hard to believe. But also at the same time, it feels long.
Yeah,
but
it feels long, but
not, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Love is Blind update.
Oh, yeah.
We finally caught up and watched the weddings, but we're going to be a little bit behind for the reunion.
Yeah.
But
that's interesting.
They were dropping like flies, all those couples.
Yeah.
And it is interesting. I mean, a lot of them people saw coming, but man, we were talking about Tim and what's her name? Ashley.
Okay.
Like how Tim was a good guy. He was mad. Like she must have done something.
Yeah, we'll have to look it up and see what actually happened.
Or maybe they'll talk about it on the reunion. But like
I don't think
he was done.
Yeah. He doesn't seem like the type of guy that's going to be on TikTok talking about it. But maybe.
No. But maybe like she
has something or something.
But maybe she didn't tell the whole real story either. That's why last year they were pretty good about like calling people out on stuff.
Yeah.
At the reunion, or was it a year? Or whenever the last reunion came out, they were pretty good about calling people out on the, messed up stuff. Like that Trevor guy who lied about the whole thing. But I'm interested to see what happened because he just looked real done. Like, and then she was like, you said all this stuff to my dad. And like, for him, I wanted to be like, that doesn't mean that like you can just do whatever you want and he has to stay committed to you because he said the things to your dad. Like, you also have to be a partner worth being with in order to uphold those things.
But he should have been a little more sure, before saying all that stuff to her dad because he had to have some level of doubt still at this point. I mean, maybe she did something that, but he already knew because he'd already dealt with her before. Mm-hmm. So that's the thing is like, unless she did something that proved to him that he doesn't need to have any more doubts anymore.
Right.
And I'm sure that he must have had some kind of, because he was like, I see no circumstance or condition or situation.
Where I could marry you.
Yeah, where I would say yes. So that's like,
that's bad.
There's nothing you can do. But
that's true.
But that's how when you make up your mind, you got to make up your mind like that. So that's.
Yeah, no, I still think.
Leave no ambiguity.
He's done the right thing.
Yeah.
Because obviously it had to be something that really bothered him. And instead of, I'm sure they talked about it. Like it seemed like in the edit, he didn't really want to talk that much. But at the same time, based on how she was acting and him saying like, you you just left once the cameras went off and went to sleep.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure some things had been happening behind the scenes that.
Well, you don't know who's performing
know.
for the camera too, and how, because everyone's trying to look good on the camera. I mean, most of the people are trying to look good on the camera, and then they're, they could be lying to your face and.
Yeah, but here's the thing too. I am over these guys coming on the show that have no business getting married. They didn't even want to get married. Like Ramses.
No.
Granted, I know you have your own opinion about him and like some of the things that he said, and I agree with you. He's way too all over the place.
Yeah.
But if you need more time because you were married before, it doesn't matter if it was Marissa or whoever. Why are you on the show?
Yeah.
You're going to get married in like 4 weeks after meeting somebody.
Oh, but think of it this way, right? So if someone's like, I'll give you $10 million if you pretend to be in love with someone and act like you're going to marry them, right?
I'm not getting $10 million.
No, I know, but I'm just using this as an example, right? How many people will be able to do it? A lot of people. They'd be able to lie to this person's face, to pretend like, say, I love you, all this stuff, right? And do a good job of acting it, right? I mean, get in some fights and then like it'd be hard to, but they would be able to do it. So I know they're not getting $10 million, but it might as well be to a lot of fame seekers. It's not even the money, it's the fame, right? It's like, I'm going to be on TV. I'm going to, like, what's going to happen after this show? Like, I see the people with their TikToks and now they have 30,000 followers. But that's what it comes to, and then they can get brand deals. And it's like, all I got to do is lie for, to my way.
But then you look bad. And I get that some people don't care about that, but is fame, quote, fame really worth it? And I agree with you. But because, to be honest, like all of these shows are not even real anymore. Like all of them. I'm sure when The Bachelor first came out and Love is Blind first came out and these other ones on the like first season were real. But now, because nobody really knew that they would get so popular.
Well, let me tell you this. Back in the day, 20 years ago, right, when I was an actor, okay, and I auditioned for reality shows back then. That was the primitive days of reality shows. It was just like any other audition that you got a call back on. It was not...
Be yourself and we'll pick you.
They say, okay, this is the role we want you to play. Like that's what they literally are like. Okay,
so is Nick playing the dumb guy role? Because
I mean, it might not be to that extreme, but usually they're trying to cast someone. They already. So let me put it this way: it's not necessarily that they're like, I want you to be an Irish immigrant. It's like it's that they have.
They want you to be like the villain.
They're like, we need a physicist, right? We got one. We want two physicists. That was not an accident. They purposely cast those people. They were looking for that role. We need a black guy that is looks like he might be a gangbanger. We need like this.
Wait, what?
Right? Like that's the Tyler guy, right? It's like, or what's the name of the other guy? I don't know. You know what I'm talking about? Anyway, my point is like that's they're picking specific. We want this kind of person, right? That's how they cast reality TV shows. And then they find people that match up to that. And then if you're close, they ask you to be a little bit more like this. Or can you act a little bit more like this? Can you be a little more bitchy? You know what I mean? That's what they do. So it is, for a large part, fake.
I mean, I know that, but it's also, I don't know. It's just, because some people do seem genuine.
Right.
It's usually and I'm not saying it's never the women, because there are some of the women, like we saw Micah and that other girl, Irina. But most of the time it's guys pretending. Like, look at this season. How many guys pretended? Even Tyler, like I know they got married, but there's going to be some stuff that they're going to have to go through because he lied. And even if we don't know the full extent, he did lie. And whether he's telling the truth now and they really figured it out, or if she's going to find out at the, reunion, there's some things there. But like all those guys had a problem besides Tim.
Yeah.
Honestly, Steven, doing some crazy stuff on TV. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, even if you're into all that stuff, like, can you not do it until you get off of TV? Like, that's
but
that's
maybe
crazy to
that
me.
might have been part of what, again, you got to think of it this way, right? Like, look, these reality TV shows, right? It's a huge budget. Remember, like, this is a huge draw. It's a huge moneymaker for the studio.
Feed them. Well, now they do because everybody.
They're not going to spend their. They have plots. They have drama. They're creating these things. They don't care about people falling in love. They don't care about people getting married. They care about entertaining people and getting money.
That's true.
Right? Getting the eyes on it. Right? So whatever they need to do, they're making it look like the show is about love being blind and all this stuff, and that these people are real, but.
Some of them are still married, like from the beginning.
Granted, and I'm not saying that can't happen, but
it's like
what I'm saying is that the producers of the show are not all about.
No,
at all.
I'm not saying that. I think it's innocent and all believable.
I'm just saying you don't know how much stuff is orchestrated.
Right. No, I get that part too, but it's also like
because they're not going to leave it to chance.
It's getting annoying though. Yeah. How easily it is to tell who's there for real and who's not.
Right.
And even if you're playing a character, like you can still tell who genuinely wants to be married and like wants to find love versus the people who aren't there for that.
I mean, I would question if anyone's even there for real.
I mean, I agree with that just because at this point, you know, if you're going on Love is Blind, you're going to get somewhat famous. Like people are going to know who you are now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like there is a part of it where nobody has pure intentions.
Right. And casting directors are good. They're sniffing people out. They know what they want for their entertainment. They know what mix to put,
Look, you're preaching to the choir. I went and auditioned for The Bachelor because they called me.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And they just asked me the same questions over and over again. And I guess I was too like, they didn't ask me to play a character. I would have been like, no, but I guess I was too, I don't know, like normal for them.
Yeah.
So.
I don't know. I mean, maybe, or whatever character that they're looking to fill that, but they need it for the dramas, but it's hard to say. It's hard to say what anything,
is anymore.
Exactly. So.
But it did inspire our topic for today because when Marissa and Ramses were in that like hot tub boat, she was like, I would be unhappy in my marriage for 5 to 7 years before I got a divorce.
Right. Yeah.
And you paused it and you asked me and I was like 1 year and you were like 1 year.
Yeah.
And then we had this conversation and I thought it was a good conversation because each person's answer would probably be a little bit different, right?
Right.
And so when we were talking about it, honestly, a year was even a long time in our situation.
Yeah.
And I told you, like if I was unhappy or you were unhappy, we would have a conversation long before that. And we're just the type of people that would figure that out. And even if like it's something we still had to work on and maybe we had hiccups, I don't feel like there would be a huge length of time where we would be unhappy.
Because our relationship is such a huge part of our lives.
Right.
That if it's not as big of a part of your life, you could potentially have other things in your life and you could be unhappy in the relationship.
Right. And you would be okay.
Yeah. But I agree with you. It would be very difficult for me to see us in a situation where one of us is unhappy and we're not addressing, even for 2 months, because we would have to address it, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe there's some circumstance where one of us has some kind of depression or something and there's an unhappy situation and that lasts for some period of time. And then that would be the thing, like it's like you would stick it out with that person. But
see, when she said it, I took it as unhappy in the relationship, not just like unhappy. Like depression can just be like unhappy, not like with the person you're with, just like
a state. But the other person, because of that, is probably going to be unhappy in the relationship. That's why I said that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I get that.
Right. Because if you're with someone who's depressed all the time,
it weighs on you, especially if you're around them, constantly.
And you're probably going to be unhappy in their relationship at some time, especially if they're like really depressed where they don't want to get out of bed.
Right.
Like you're obviously going to stick with them. But again, it's the different circumstances that, right? You could ask the question, how long would you stick with someone in that case that you're married
if
to?
They're depressed.
And they don't want to get out of bed, type of depressed.
I mean, I would still say maybe a year, only because of this. Only because of this.
Okay.
And I would say longer. But a year of them not trying, just succumbing to the depression. If you're trying, and I can tell you're trying, I will stick through it. There is no time limit. But if you're not, that's, I guess, my issue is if you're going a year or years without trying to fix anything, just like sweeping it under the rug, that's where I'm like, there does need to be a time limit. But if you're trying, and there is like, some sort of growth happening or healing happening or something happening, and like even if it goes back, there is no like limit to me.
Yeah.
It's the like not
checking out.
Right. And the thing is, like, when you're in a relationship, there's only so much you can do.
Right.
So you can do all that you can do, but if your partner chooses not to do anything, there's no way you can control that.
No.
And so there does need to come a time, and granted, it might be different for different people, but there does come a time, and I guess it's like not as long for you and me because I know how we act normally. And if it goes a whole year, that's like 10 years in our relationship.
Wait a minute. So you love me more so you'd leave me sooner? Is that what you're trying to say?
In a weird way, kind of.
I kind of get it, but I'm a bit conflicted though, because on one hand, I agree. And like in our relationship, it would be us being in that kind of situation would be more severe because of because of what we've been through, the closest that we have, what we know, our level of emotional intelligence and relationship intelligence, that it would feel more drastic.
Right.
However, at the same time, there's the like, okay, you make a vow, you make a commitment, you say to death do us part, you say in sickness and in health, you don't say, unless I'm not feeling it anymore, I'm not happy in the relationship. And so there's a commitment and especially when you create a family too, right? It's no longer just you, it's no longer just your spouse. Now you have children, you've created a unit. And especially in that circumstance, I think unless there's abuse, you shouldn't be leaving that situation.
Right. But I would also say, when you got married, you made a commitment to work on your relationship and to like put in the effort.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying, like, if there's no effort being put in, I don't feel like you're upholding your marriage. I feel like that's just you staying in a binding contract. Like, it's like people who are in a binding contract, but they're like, I'm just going to do the bare minimum because I'm stuck in this. Like, and that's not okay either. Like, you can't justify by being like, well, I'm staying with you if you're not doing anything to actually fix the relationship or help the relationship. Like, that's kind of cheating the system. That's kind of being like, well, technically I'm still committed to you. I'm upholding my vow, but also at the same time, you're not, because like, you're not doing all the other things that come with having a marriage.
That's why I'm conflicted, is because I agree with both sides of it, right? It's like, because it's hard to determine the circumstance in which someone would do that. It's like, it's almost like the question becomes more like, when do you give up on someone? How long before you give up on someone? And I think a valid answer could be never. If you've made commitments and you've started a family and you've made the promise and you said, because why did you stand up there and make the promise. If you didn't know the person well enough to say, look, I'm never going to give up on you. It doesn't even matter if
Because
you're
you
in
were
a
on
dark...
Love is Blind and you only had 4 weeks.
Well, yeah.
No,
but
just
if
kidding.
it doesn't matter if you're in a dark place and you've forgotten, what we had, but I'm never going to give up on you. I think that is more the direction I'm leaning. Again, it's hard to see it in our circumstance. It's hard to see it, but I still feel like unless there's abuse or infidelity, if you've made that vow, like if you stood up there, like you don't have to make the vow, but if you're so sure about this person that you're like, okay, no matter what happens, I'm going to stick with you. Because here's why I would say this. Actually, I just thought of this now. Is like, what if someone gets a debilitating disease or their face is burned off in a car accident or something, where it's like, where the quality of life, where you're just a caretaker for them at that point, you're not going to be happy in the relationship, obviously, but you have committed to this person forever, for life. And so, that it still applies. Like, so that's why I would say,
well, and
aside from abuse, I think that it would still apply.
I mean, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think it's more something you can control versus something you can't. Because obviously, if something happened to you that was out of your control, that's different. Like, it wouldn't be any time frame. But it's like, if you stopped being who you are and you stopped caring about our relationship and you stopped working on our relationship and you just focused on yourself, or like you were, ignoring me, or, all the things that would make me unhappy in the relationship, right? That like would basically have to be like you doing a 180 and acting totally different. That is something you can control. And I would be concerned that like, one, obviously I tried to have a lot of conversations and be like, where did this come from? Like, what is causing this? And all these things. And I would have hoped that you could go back to who you were. But it's also like, if you didn't try though for a whole year, I would be concerned, especially knowing you and knowing what you're capable of.
That's why it's hard to think of the circumstance, right?
Well, it's harder in our situation because when we were talking about it too, when she was like 5 to 7 years, I'm like, some people would probably do that, but it's because they already lived separate lives. So 5 to 7 years of just being two independent people and not really being the happiest you can be in your relationship doesn't seem that bad to some people. But in a situation like you and I, where we're so closely like intertwined, that I don't think I could live like that for 5 to 7 years. I could not live after having what we had now and go to like complete opposite and basically just like roommates and us doing our own thing. I couldn't live like that. And like we would still be together because we got married, but it's not what we agreed to when we got married. It's not the love. It's not a marriage to me. If you're living, to me, it's not a marriage if you're just roommates and you tolerate each other. That's not a marriage. That's you've turned it into a friendship. And you have a legally binding document that says you're more than just friends, but you're acting like just friends.
Okay, but I think you're looking at two extremes, right? Because, and I agree, I mean, it would be really weird to be roommates, right? That kind of, but I think where a lot of people end up is in the middle, where there's a lot of bitterness and they start to like have bitterness towards each other. I don't want to say hate, but in a way, like resentment towards each other. And so they're caught in the crazy cycle. And so they're neither of them are really happy in their relationship. They're both kind of trying to work on it. Like they don't have the emotional intelligence, because they haven't watched Better Than Perfect podcast, in order to be able to do that. So, which they should watch it. So, so the thing is that like, that's really, because that's who we're really asking the question to. It's not really a question for us as much.
That's why it's kind of hard, right? Because I answer things from my own experiences or the things that I've learned. And so I'm answering this question from our perspective, but I also understand that people aren't in our like situation. So it's harder.
It's the guy that's like,
it varies.
That's like wants to leave his marriage because his wife's a bitch, right? He's like, she turned into such a bitch. Like she's always nagging me. She's like, I'm on my case all the time. I mean, I still love her, but like she's just annoying and like just like she doesn't take care of herself anymore, and like, you know, he's got these things, and then it's like, so you're unhappy, so how long are you going to be unhappy? And my answer to that guy, if I was coaching him, I'd be like, dude, no one forced you to get up at the altar and make this promise. Like, work on it, work with her, even if you feel like she's not working. Like, you made the commitment for life. You didn't, like, she's not abusing you, right? I mean, maybe, like, I think
verbally, maybe
in that, you know, but I think in the extreme case where you were talking about, like, if you just you didn't want to work on it and you're just trying to completely ignore someone, then that's like an emotional abuse. I think you're getting to that level where that's okay. Now it's like, okay, well, this person's actually being abusive. But I think in the case of like that guy, I would be like, no, you got to fucking stick it out. Like, you have a family, you have kids. Like, you can't just separate the family and do all this stuff just because you're not happy with the choice that you made now. You know, because I don't see anything, like, if you tell me, oh, she's physically abusive, or even if you say she's verbally abusive constantly or whatever, you know, those pieces, then I could say, okay, yeah, this makes sense, or she's cheated on you. But other than that, hey, no, you got to stick it out. You got to stick it out for a long time.
But what about what you said before, where you try for 3 months and you just focus on the other person and then you leave? That's not in your marriage. And also, what you just said, I feel like I understand, but it's also concerning because it's like, okay, let's use the example you used. Your wife's a bitch, right? There's nothing you can do. You need to stick it out. But like, so you have to live the rest of your life unhappy because like, you think you're going to make your kids' lives better by being unhappy. Like, as someone who saw their parents unhappy from time to time.
Right. Yeah, but
it's like, I get it. Like, I'm not saying they should have instantly jumped to divorce, but I'm saying at the same time, like, that's the issue here, right? Is that your kids also seeing you unhappy and you two treating each other poorly or ignoring each other or whatever is happening, or like calling each other names like that. You think it's better for your kids to stay, but that also damages them in a different way.
Well, but it's kind of a straw man argument, because in the sense, like, in that case, right, you're not, most of the time, like 90% of the time, you get someone in that situation, they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing in the relation. Like, they think they are, because even the fact that they're saying, oh, my wife's a bitch, I already know there's something wrong with you because you just said that. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not, like, that's not the person who has self-actualization and has worked on themselves. They don't say my wife's a bitch. They say, I'm having a lot of struggle with her. Like, I feel like she's not, you know, like, I'm trying to improve myself and trying to improve the relationship, and I'm not seeing the response from her, and it's hard to, you know, it's like, so, you know, but I mean, I know I set that up with the thing, but what I'm saying is that in so many of those cases, it's like, no, you haven't done. That's where I think the 3-month thing comes in. Is it's like, if you have watched the Better Than Perfect podcast every week, all 50 episodes, and you know, and you've applied it, and you've tried to work on their relationship, and it is, and you know that there's it really seems like the issue is the other person, and then you give that 3-month period where you put aside your needs and you just focus on them, and you just you don't worry about yourself, and then you see no response from them at all, then okay. But
do you realize that
will never happen?
Did you just realize that you just said 3 months and I said a year? Because when I first answered, I said, as long as you're working to fix it, because I agree with you. Like, you can't sit back and do nothing and be like, let's see if it gets fixed. Like, you have to be trying to fix it, and you have to be focused on that, and you need to change things. But I said, if for a year they didn't do anything because you can't control them, then you could leave. You said 3 months. So that's the thing. And then you also said never, ever leave. So it's like, I get that it's complicated, but I feel like there does have to come a point, and maybe each person determines what it is for them. But like, think the thing that we both said, where if you put all your effort into focusing on your partner and trying to fix what you guys have going on and like fix the things that you can fix within yourself and treat them better and see what happens in that circumstance, try to end the crazy cycle, read the Love and Respect book and read the Empowered Wife book if you're a woman. And I'm sure you have some books for men as well too that they can read, but like do all that.
Right.
And then figure out a timeline where if you're not getting anything back, then there is time to think about it, because I get the commitment thing too. Like we made a commitment and I intend to honor that until I die.
Right.
But at the same time, if you did a 180 and you were a completely different person and I'm trying to save our relationship and you could care less, and I do that for a whole year,
then
like I love you more than anybody.
Right.
But I would have to be like,
but I've already left the relationship at that point, right?
Right.
And I think that's your argument, and I think that makes sense.
Right. Like you already broke a vow. Like people are too literal on certain things in the vows, which I get, but they don't talk about like why you got married in the first place.
Right.
And that's to like look out for each other and to support each other. And granted, it's not stated explicitly like that, but it is. Like in sickness and in health, that's supporting your partner.
Right.
And if you can't even support your partner in working to fix both of your relationship, because it's both of your responsibilities, you've already broken the commitment. You've already broken your vow.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't want to let people off easy. I think that's the big thing.
I don't want to either.
Yeah. It's like you've got to like really, well, and the other thing about this too is to understand that like, look, you better be damn sure, because I've said it before on the podcast, but divorce is the worst thing you'll ever go through in your life. It should be for most people. I know people are like, no, it's not. Like, yeah, but you weren't really in it, but it is. It's the worst thing that you're going to go through, worse than death. So if you want to go through that, then you better be damn sure that it's worth going through that, because which again, that's where I'm like, okay, it's probably going to be an abusive situation, or it could be the situation like you're talking about where, but see, the situation you're talking about,
I feel like it is rare.
It will never happen. And I'll tell you why it will never happen is because you're not going to get up there and assuming that you made the commitment in some kind of a sound mind, you know what I mean? And make a commitment to someone that you believe that you're going to love forever. And then you do all this stuff correctly, which is very hard to do in the first place, and not have them respond. Right?
I agree.
Yeah, maybe the small, in that case, sure. But for the 99% of people, the problem is you. It's not them. Like yes, there might be two co-conspirators in the problem, but you fixing yourself will fix the problem or make at least a lot of progress, and you will see some kind of response. There is some kind of help, and that's the thing, is that people give up too easy because they don't know that.
Which
they
I don't
understand.
think people should give up too easy. And like I said, I can see where maybe with other people in a relationship that doesn't have as deep of intimacy and they don't want to be around each other 24/7 like we do. Like I can see where maybe they would wait longer. But like you said, at the same time, it's like, as long as you're putting everything you have into it to try to fix things and be the best version of yourself and treat them with respect and love, I agree with you that I can't see that not working.
Right.
And then also, if it doesn't work, then I feel like you also get this clarity of like, okay, that I can't do this. I've given my all. There's nothing more I can give.
Yeah.
And so, this is how it has to be. Because I think and it's mostly women that are like, no, divorce was the best thing that ever happened to me. I think that they didn't really try as hard as they could. And I think that the men didn't try as hard as they could.
Right.
And they probably were in a really crappy situation where divorce seemed like the better option. And it has to get really bad for divorce to seem like the better option.
If you try as hard as you can, divorce will be the worst thing that ever happens to you. I think that's
because
probably
you gave it your all.
right. Because you put so much in.
Right.
And then
And you tried so hard.
right. And then you have to cut those losses at that point. And that's
right. Well, and maybe
sure.
that's why, right? Some people don't understand why you say it's the worst thing.
If you got married lightly, if you're just living separate lives, if that's how you were if you never put in the effort, then divorce isn't going to seem so severe to you.
Well, or if you're being abused, like you said, which is an option. Like
even in those cases, it still is going to be severe, right? Now you've got to deal with someone who's abused you, and you're,
right.
But yeah, I think it does come down to like you said, it's difficult. It's a complicated issue, right? Because again, the other thing I was going to say is like there are commitments that I will break, right? Like, even if I entered a business deal with someone and then I agreed to do this thing, but then they turned out to like, they were deceptive, right? Even though I signed a thing, or they turned out to be just impossible to work with. Yeah. I'm like, okay, fine. Yeah. I'm a liar then. Fine. You know what I mean? Like it's going to take a lot in order for me to be willing to sacrifice that integrity in that case. But there are circumstances, right? And I think that you do have to, as a man especially, have that I'm willing to walk away if I'm mistreated. But again, when you start to get into that mistreated area, that's where you start to get actually into the emotional or physical abuse, right? Because depending on the severity of the mistreatment. But if someone continually mistreats you and neglects you, that is emotional abuse, right? And I think that's the circumstance. We're kind of dancing back and forth around it. But I think it does, in order for that to occur, it does equate to, at that point, emotional abuse. Because if you're working on it and you're trying to help this person and you're trying to fix things and they're not responding and they're giving you the cold shoulder and they're neglecting you and they're not trying to work on the relationship at all, and they had married you and agreed to these things, I don't see how that's not emotional abuse at that point. So
right.
Yeah.
Well, and look, and I admire Marissa for saying 5 to 7 years, because that's a long time to be unhappy.
Yeah.
Like, that's a long time. And I think that her saying that made me feel like I could tell how bad she wanted to be with him. But I think she also just wants love at the same time. But I think, saying that she would wait that long, like unhappy before they got a divorce, like, it seems like I can see where saying that you're like, oh, she would like really try to work through it or give it the time. But also it's like, that's a long time, 5 to 7 years to be unhappy.
Yeah.
And we only have one life. And I'm not saying I'm Oprah Winfrey of divorces. You get a divorce and you get a divorce.
Right.
Because I agree with you that I think it should be like the last stitch effort, and to a point where you've tried 100% for however long your timeline is. And like at this point, divorce is the better option than staying where you are and potentially being abused or whatever's happening. Because you have to think about it too, right? Like, if you're trying everything and the other person's still not doing it, which I agree with you that, like, I think if one person initiates doing the right thing, it does inspire the other person too, especially if you have a deep connection.
Yeah.
I think that if someone for a year is just ignoring you or disregarding your efforts to try to fix things or whatever, like, that is, I don't want to say abusive, but it is something that's very harmful and hurtful.
Well, it does become abusive to that extent and for that duration, right? But there's also the aspect of two are stronger than one. When one falls down, the other one picks them up, right? And so I think that's the thing to recognize, is that there does have to be a long enough amount of time, and you do have to be trying to lift the other person up, and they have to be refusing your help, or not trying to at all. Because one of the great things about being married and having a commitment is that, it's a little different for us because we were not really like, because of the bond that we have in the relationship that we've cultivated, that I don't anticipate this happening. But I would say that there are, for a lot of people in their lives and their relationships, there will be periods of time where one person is not fully present or fully there, or they're struggling with some stuff in their life, and they're just like, and it's causing them to neglect the relationship and their partner, or they're lost, and having that other person carrying them, still being there for them while they're struggling through that time, and then eventually they come out of it, and then maybe it flips the other way at some point, and the other person is down and out and not, or is disillusioned with the relationship, and they need the guidance. I think having that strength of knowing that no one's going to give up. It's like if you know someone's not going to give up on you,
right?
Even when you're feeling down and out, then you're so much stronger, because it takes both of you in order to have the thing be destroyed. But again, like I said, there is a duration to that where it's not even necessarily the duration. It's like, are they not responding at all?
Right.
Are they like, because they could be in a bad place for a long time, for a couple of years even. People go through things, and the other person might be unhappy in their relationship, right? But they're not giving up on this person that they committed to. And I think that's what it comes down, because those are the circumstances where a lot of people do give up, and that they don't take the commitment seriously. You know what I mean? It's like, I think that's where I think it's important to be very committed to the thing. It's clear when it's the situation that you're describing, where it's like, okay, the person's not even responding at all. They're neglecting you on purpose. They don't, they're not putting any effort into the relationship. They just want to go and live their separate life. Like they're already checked out completely. I think in that case, you still have to obviously give it some amount of time, but then okay, well, they don't even care. They're not even trying. So
well, and I think that's, I guess, my main thing where it would have a timeline is if the other person's not trying, like no matter what it is. And even if they're trying, but it doesn't seem like very much, or it's going very slowly, I don't have a problem with that. It's the total lack of trying with everything. Like if there's an issue with the relationship and they're not trying, if they're, depressed and they're not trying to help themselves, if, whatever other circumstance would come up, like as long as there's trying for me, then there is no time limit, right? Like, and it doesn't have to be a certain amount of trying. It has to be trying, like visible.
Yeah.
But because that's really the thing, right? Is like, especially if you're in a situation where your partner is depressed or something, and, you can't really help them. The only way that they can get help is from themselves. Like they have to be the one to figure out how they can help themselves not be in this state. And so, like, I totally agree with you with supporting your partner and being there and carrying the load sometimes, because that is how it's going to be in a marriage. And I'm not saying it's not, but if your partner's depressed for a year and you feel like they're not really trying, then who's to say that might be like a permanent state? Especially with depression, it's like you can stay in that, like you said, for a really long time if you're absorbed by it and it becomes just what you are, right?
Exactly.
Like, so even small acts of trying to combat that would matter to me and would, take away whatever timeline thing. It's just the not trying.
It's a not, exactly. Which again, I think we, that circumstance is an extreme one that I don't know if will really actually exist, right? At that, I mean, I guess it doesn't in some, but usually in those circumstances, it's accompanied with abuse,
right? Because
that to be that kind of person, or some kind of mental disability, or some kind of mental injury, or something that is actually wrong with you, because otherwise, what happened? How is that even possible, right? Or you're not actually, as the other person in the relationship, trying and putting in the right kind of effort, and or you've hurt them so badly that they're not responding anymore, and now you've got to do the work to like try and restore that that thing. But
Yeah, there's a lot of different circumstances, and it's kind of like different answers for each one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's
Sort of thing.
Yeah, it's weird because like I think the way that question was asked, or like the way it was stated in that episode of the show, it comes from the perception of that you could be in that state where you would just be unhappy for 5 to 7 years,
Right.
Where it is kind of more like you're living separate lives, or you're just doing whatever, or you're not talking about it, and you're just like secretly unhappy, or you're just you express it sometimes that you're unhappy, like you're not trying to resolve or work things. And then I can see someone saying, okay, well, I would be like this for 5 to 7 years, and you know, but that kind of thinking is almost like, I want someone else to magically fix my problem, and so I'm going to wait 5 to 7 years to see if that happens, and if it doesn't happen, then I'm going to give up, which is noble in thought, but is not the thing that is required to do. Like, you have to actually really put in the effort, because if you're just saying, okay, I'm just going to be 5 to 7 years just living my life in an unhappy state, it sounds like you're probably not talking to the person and saying, hey, I'm unhappy with this. And surprisingly, a lot of people do that. They don't say, this is what's actually bothering me, or this is what I'm unhappy about, or I like this, I don't like this.
And if you can't talk to your partner about that, the person you're married to, who the heck can you talk to?
Right.
If you can't be honest with them. Well, and I think that she said that not to manipulate Ramses, but in a way kind of, because he was, you know, like, I don't know if I can live like this. I don't know if I can get married and have this happen, you know? And I think she was trying to be like, well, I can handle some uncomfortable times. Right. And then chose this like really big, you know, frame of time. And, you know, he had already been divorced. Right. So who's to say that he hadn't been unhappy and for a good chunk of time. And so him hearing that was probably scared him more than made him realize, oh, yeah, sometimes there's going to be unhappy times. You know, like, I think she did it in a weird way. Like, I get what she was trying to do, but I don't think it worked the way that she thought.
She's saying, I'm committed, like I'm willing, like, even if we have, it's rocky, I'm going to stick it out. And that's really the thing, is like, if it's rocky, are you going to stick it out? And the answer should be yes, because you made the commitment. Rocky is different than what?
Than 5 to 7 years of unhappiness.
Well, if it's rocky for 5 to 7 years, that's still rocky. That's still,
well, and like you said, if there's some sort of effort, then that's different. I guess maybe I took it too literally when she said unhappy, but in my mind, unhappy is like no good times, and like two people living like separate lives and barely talking to each other.
Yeah. Well, and I think the thing is, like, too many people get caught up on the word happy too, right? Like, you're not entitled to happiness. And if you chase happiness in life, that's the sure formula for finding misery. You have to chase fulfillment. You have to do the things, not just because that's where people get lost, is they're like, oh, well, I'm not happy right now, or I'm not happy in the relationship. I'm unhappy with my partner. No, that's not the same thing as what we're talking about. You know what I mean? That those are choices that you make when you compare, when you say you want this. Those are not the things like, there's a serious problem, or the person's not treating you properly, or you know, that's the thing. And that's where I guess that people get it, is because they're like, oh, I'm not happy. I'm not happy with the situation. I'm not happy with these things.
Well, they got to know that in life, you're not always going to be happy. And that's just a part of life. But it also makes the happy times better. And so I'm not going to sit here and be like, people are never going to have things come up in their marriage that challenges them, and they're going to be unhappy. Like, those things are going to happen in life one way or another. But if you really are committed to working through everything, you also take it on together. And I guess just when she was like, I would be unhappy for 5 to 7 years, that just doesn't feel like they're working on it together. Like, it doesn't feel like a collective sort of fight for the marriage, because that's what I feel like it should be. Like, it really shouldn't ever be one person fighting and the other person not. But I understand, like you said, that sometimes someone will have to carry a little bit more of the weight than the other person. But I think if you overall like fight for the marriage together and like work through things so you can both be as happy as you can be and have
Yeah.
the relationship that you want to have, then that also kind of like because until she said that,
Right.
that never came across in my mind. I didn't
Right.
even have a time.
timeline,
Like I didn't
exactly.
even have this
Right.
sort of thing set up in my mind. And I think people shouldn't,
Right.
to be honest. Like we're just talking about this because it came up and like logically thinking about it out loud here. But if I'm being honest, even after we talk about this, it's not going to be ingrained in my mind. I'm not going to have
a countdown.
you get a whole year, you know,
like those little. There hasn't been an injury in the workplace in
Right,
5 days.
exactly.
You'd be like, I haven't been happy in 6 days.
Right.
There's 365 days, and then that's it.
Yeah. Like I'm honestly not going to even think about this because I didn't think about it before.
No.
I don't feel like I needed to think
No.
about it. I still don't think I needed to think about it. And I get where in her circumstance, she was
Right.
thinking about it because of the situation she was in. And I think that if people are in an actually bad situation, they should be thinking about it. But I don't feel like I should tell them they should be thinking about it. They're probably already thinking about it. But for most people, I don't think they should be dwelling on, okay, well, if I'm unhappy with my husband for 3 years, I'm going to leave. Or, you know, if he does this and I'm going to leave after this amount of time. Like you said before, like if you're being abused or like if things are really bad and you invest 100%.
Right. Those are.
And you're putting everything into it and nothing is still happening. You pick whatever timeline feels best for you, but that is the only circumstance. Like abuse or infidelity, or you are being like
It would be. I could say.
I mean,
you could just go say neglect.
Right.
I think that's
neglected for a
because that
long
would be
amount
neglect.
of time.
Maybe
Yeah.
that's the best way to say it: is abuse, infidelity, or neglect.
Right.
Because it constitutes neglect. Everything that we said.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
But,
But yeah, I don't think people should dwell on it
Yeah,
though.
but-
Like don't
yeah.
write down somewhere if I'm unhappy for 6 months in my marriage, I'm leaving, you know,
Yeah.
like because what you said is true. Like you made a commitment and you shouldn't diminish that.
Yeah.
Like you really should try to work through every single thing that you can.
Right.
And
Yeah.
not get divorced.
Yeah. You didn't promise to be committed as long as you're happy, or
Right.
that's the thing. Sorry. So that's why I think happiness is the wrong word. It's the wrong thing. Almost every time someone says happiness, it's the wrong thing. If you look at in their specific circumstance, right, in their relationship, which again you could argue, yeah, you shouldn't be trying to get married, but if Ramses is annoyed with her energy and he doesn't like, it's almost like if you don't like your partner anymore. They
Right.
annoy you. You can't handle their energy, whatever it is, you know, whatever excuse you have. But then it's like, do you stay? You're unhappy. Do you stay married? And there, the answer is yes, because that's not something they're specifically doing to you. That's not
Right.
like you made that commitment. You said, "Hey, I'm going to love you forever." You don't just go back on that because they're now annoying to you, or you don't like them anymore, or you're not attracted to them anymore. Those are not excuses. Those are not reasons. Like you have to figure that out and figure out, how do you like this person? How do you find the things to like about them? How do
Right.
you find a way to be attracted to them? Like, you know, because those are the excuses that people do use that are not good excuses
true.
in my
They're very
opinion.
superficial.
Because you made that promise. That is the commitment that you have to. 'Cause like if you just took the one, it's like, I'm not attracted to my partner anymore, which happens many times where people. That's not a valid excuse because you made a commitment. You didn't say like someday you're going to be unattractive. And, you know, not you. You'll be always attractive, but you know, whoever is thinking that, like they're going to get old, and so the commitment can't be that light that it's conditional on those
Right.
those
Superficial sort of things.
right.
Yeah. And I think something that people in those situations should do is write down all the things they're grateful for their partner and things that aren't superficial, like how they are as a person and how they treat you and all those things. Like make a list,
Yeah.
because I mean, even with normal everyday life, if you practice gratitude, you're going to be happier.
Right.
So right now, a lot of these people might be focusing on these things that honestly, I don't think Ramses even didn't like her energy anymore. I think all of these other things came up,
Yeah,
and now he's nitpicking everything else. Where if he had focused on, granted, I don't think they should have gotten married because there was other things, but if he focused on the good qualities about her and was grateful to have a partner that treated him like the way that she treated him and, you know, all the good things, then those things will go away.
Right.
Like when you focus on the negative, you
Right.
just find more and more negative,
Right.
or they become bigger seeming, right?
Right.
And that's only because you're focusing on them rather than adjusting your mindset
Right.
and being grateful for the partner that you have who loves you
Exactly. Yeah.
and all of these other things.
Right.
Like you will be happier if you do that. And a lot of people take it for granted and not even necessarily on purpose, just because we're always with our partner
Right.
24/7, right? Or people have been married for 20 years and like all these different things. Like you have to sometimes stop this downward spiral
Yeah.
and be like, no, this is all the things I actually have that I took for granted and I didn't see because I was blinded by this, this, and this.
Yeah.
So before you just go and sign the divorce papers, you need to do everything that you
Right.
can, and you need to figure out all the things that you are grateful for in the situation that you're in.
It becomes that whole don't be with the one you love the one you're with, right? Which is that's why also one of the reasons why arranged marriages are so much more successful, because when people come into an arranged marriage, they didn't pick necessarily each other. I mean, there's different degrees of it, but they have annoying qualities that the other,
Right.
and they have to learn to love those qualities, and because you're stuck with this person, right? And so you don't get to be as picky and say, "Oh, I'm not happy," or "I don't like." You have to learn to adapt. Now, again, still abuse, neglect, right? Yeah, those type of things, infidelity. Yeah, still grounds for separating in that case, or calling it quits. But that's the thing is like when you're looking at it from that, you didn't come into it with the expectation that I like this person,
Right.
right? It's like you have to learn to like this
you're
person.
lucky if you got married to someone you liked first.
Right, exactly. So I think that's where we kind of get a little bit spoiled and get to a point where we are like, I'm unhappy, and the unhappy is not the
Right.
thing.
Well, and to not go off on a tangent because we don't have time, but I do think today's age has caused that, you know, with the dating apps and all these things where people can just instantly find somebody else like so much easier than before, that people are taking their relationships for granted.
Right.
Like they are quick to divorce because they're like, oh, well, I can find somebody else or, you know, whatever. Like, I'm not saying that's the main reason, but I think this like instant gratification
Right.
that we've become accustomed to is not helping relationships. And that's why stopping and really appreciating what you have and the person that you're with. And like you said, like you got to marry somebody that you loved.
Right. Yeah.
Some people are in an arranged marriage that they're meeting somebody for the first time at the altar and they make it work. Like, so there are things about your partner that you love and that made you want to spend the rest of your life with them. And you need to focus on those or find those again or help bring those out of your partner or clear out all the junk that you guys swept under the rug so that you can get back to what you had before.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, shoot, I just lost my train of thought. I should have had my notebook.
For your first ever thing you wrote in there.
Yeah. I think it was about the arranged marriage or like choosing. I can't. It was.
There.
What were you just talking about real quick?
You should appreciate the person that you fell in love with because you fell in love with them for a reason.
Yeah.
And you should be grateful.
It disappeared.
And some people have to learn to love the person they're with, and you got to marry somebody that you already loved and wanted to spend the rest of your life with. Look, that's about everything.
Yeah, it was something tangentially related to that. I don't know.
Oh, instant gratification or like dating apps, things like that.
Oh yeah, that's what it was about. That's what it was. It was about how the dating app,
he's got it, but
it's like
only a little
the swappable nature of people. It's like right there.
It's on the cusp.
It's like, yeah, it had to do with the dating apps.
Well, everybody thinks the grass is greener on the other side, right? Like, but the grass is greener where you water it. That's the real
That's
thing.
true.
But in today's age, people do think the grass is greener on the other side because there's so many other sides.
Yeah.
Like there's so many other sides of the mountain, right? Like, but you don't need a million sides.
I got it. See, you helped me. Thank you. See, you kept on. Oh, no, I almost lost it again. That's why I was saying, okay, because people are more disposable in their relationship if they haven't done the things that we talk about on the podcast, right? That is actually becoming one, right? Which means merging your finances, right? Because if you have separate bank accounts and everything and you're effectively living separate lives and not depending on each other in any way, you don't have that interdependence, not codependence, interdependence, then yeah, it's really easy to just bail because all you got to do is just like sign a paper. Like you got your bank accounts, I got my job, you got your job, right? It doesn't, not a big deal, right? So you're making it so that it's easier when you should not be making it so it's easier. You should make it so it's harder because the reason why you're getting married is because you want someone that has your back all the time and you want to have someone's back and you want to have that security of commitment. And so if the man is the leader of the relationship, right? If you're in a situation where instead of two separate people combining, you have one whole that's created where, again, it's not everyone can be in the situation, but where there is the man working, the wife is not, the man's being the main, let's say, main breadwinner for the house, so that she's depending on his income, where he's depending on her for the nurturing and caring and support that he needs to function and live his life and take care of him. Now you're interdependent. Now it's not as disposable, and I can't just get rid of you so easily, right? Because and swap you out with someone else, right? Because and also like
which you shouldn't want to, but I get that you're creating another like element to it where you need each other, like you said, like and so it's not just so easy to be like, okay, well we're done, you know, it's over.
And if you're creating that depth of the intimacy in the relationship, then you're creating a stronger bond that's not so easily broken. And that's what I think people are afraid. You shouldn't even be getting married if you're not going to be all in on it, because you're just setting yourself up for a disaster, right? And so, but if you are all in, that's where, again, we talked about this many times about women having a separate set aside bank account because whatever, or guys having like, okay, well, I need my prenuptial just in case, you know, it's like when you're doing those things, you're creating the circumstances in which make it so that you're treating the other person as disposable.
Right.
Whereas if they're integral to your survival, right, then divorce should become something that is something that you fear because it's going to inhibit your survival. Because, but if you haven't done that, then then you don't care. It's not a big deal, right? It's like, okay, well, because there's some paperwork and some hassle, but
you can't make it no risk. Like love is a risk,
right?
And if you want zero risk, you need to not get married,
right?
Not even really be in a relationship, which I know people don't want to do. Like, you know, they do want to take the risk, but the thing is, like you said, you have to actually fully take the risk. Especially, I can understand if you're in a relationship, you're not married yet, you don't want to combine your finances, whatever. I can understand that. But marriage, that is the ultimate commitment. You should be taking two people and becoming one person. And like you said, like there can't be any, you know, safety nets on either side, because then you're not really taking a risk. You're not really investing 100% in your partner.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like, you know, I think I said this before, but you like to have an analogy every episode for me. So if you're a tightrope walker and you got the, you know, little pole, you're doing a tightrope, but there's a big safety net underneath, right? I mean, you're going to still be trying hard because you don't want to fall. But if there's no safety net, you'll be trying really hard.
Right.
Like you're going to give it everything. You're not, because there's no,
there's no coming back.
You're going to die if, you know. And so the safety nets are bad. They make it so you're not putting as much in. That's why it's like you got to go balls to the wall.
Right.
Put it all in, put it all on the line, or don't do it at all.
Which I know people are going to be like, I already did that and I got burned. And it's like, okay, then don't take risk anymore. Like you can't. want to get married then again if you're not going to do it the way that it's supposed to be done.
It doesn't guarantee that you're not going to fall.
Right.
But it guarantees that you have the best chance of not falling.
Right. Because you're all in. You're focused on making it.
Yeah. It's always going to be that in life. That's always going to be the choice. It's you can put one foot on the dock and one foot in the boat. But
then you're going to be doing the splits soon, and you might rip your pelvic bone off.
Exactly. Right? But if you commit to the boat, hey, maybe the boat sinks. But you know what? You're definitely going to be falling in the water if you got one foot on the dock, one foot on the boat.
That's true.
That's just a matter of time. So that's why.
True. Yeah. Not going to it. I don't think we have anything for this week.
Are you sure about that?
Do we?
No, I'm just kidding.
I'm like, what?
No, we have. We should pat ourselves.
I'm gonna knock on the wood. You're like,
I'm not gonna say. Sure. I'm not gonna say what I'm thinking. I'm not gonna say.
Yeah. Well, I'm
not gonna say that we're the greatest couple in the world who like have solved all of our relationship problems. I'm not gonna say that. Just sarcastically. That's because that doesn't jinx you if you say sarcastically.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I'm going to think that still. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it, but I'm going to think it in my head, not sarcastically, but in my head only. Sarcastically out here.
This is for in your head. Okay. I've already knocked like 50 times just to make sure.
No, but we've done the work and we've done good. That doesn't mean that we won't ever, have an issue or
for you guys, but
mess up, But
we put into practice the things we come here and talk about. And that's why we come here and talk about it, because we've had to learn the hard ways on some of the things. But some of the things, we're figuring out right now, or we'll figure out and we'll share with you guys. And maybe you guys can learn it the easier way than we learned. But sometimes, you're still going to make a mistake, but you might be like, oh, I watched the podcast episode though. And this is what they did when this happened. And you can try it and see for yourself. Yeah.
And it does help too, I think, having because there is more than one time where, some thought went through my head and I did think about the podcast and I thought about, do I really want to say?
John do? WWJD, what would John do?
I thought more like, do I really want to have an end segment on the podcast? It's like,
it's keeping you in line a little bit.
You got to think a little bit, be like, all right, before you say that, it wasn't like, that, but just like, okay, just a check. Just so like, sure you want to get upset right now? Like, where's that going to go when you get upset? Like, why don't you just act loving instead of being upset? Because that'll go to a better place, But it's just, it always does come down to that simple choice of, instead of being upset, could I just be loving instead? Could I be understanding instead? What I mean? It sounds real easy to say it, but it is that easy, but it's also that hard. It's like if you in that moment, if you can think that hard. And be like, because you always have a choice to be upset or be loving, and you can't be both at the same time, as we have discovered. Right? It's like, I don't understand why you're not acting loving when you're upset.
Right.
Like, can't you just be loving and upset at me at the same time? It's like, no, you kind of got to choose. And that's the thing. That's like, we got to choose.
Oh, you realize that?
Well, I think that's become obvious because we both tried it. Right. We both made the same argument. Like, when you're upset, you don't act loving to me. Both of us have said that to each other. Right. And it's like, that's because I think that's a fundamental law of nature. Like, you can't get around that. You're just going to have to choose to be loving instead of choosing to be upset. Like, you can choose which one you want.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, does being upset mean that much to you that you're going to sacrifice being loving? Yeah.
That's true.
Some food for thought for the next time.
The end.
Next time you're in a situation and you can make that choice. So
true. Well, all right, leave us a review.
Yes, on the Apple podcast. I mean, we got a lot on Spotify. It's good.
Spotify.
Yeah. But the iTunes, or not, I guess it's Apple Podcast now?
Yeah.
Podcast. Yeah. Leave
Sorry,
us a review.
I spat all over
and if you want if you want to be on the podcast, you're in San Diego.
Or if you want to send us an email with if you're not in San Diego.
Yeah, that's true. You can send us an email.
And you want us to talk about your situation and get our advice.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to start saying this at the beginning of the episode for like people who only watch like 5 minutes.
I don't care about those people. Those people are losers. They suck. They're horrible people.
Wow.
None of them are watching right now. So
that's also very true.
So you
Plus,
guys,
we only want
the
to help
people that
our
are watching right now,
loyal
they're the most
subscribers.
awesome people in the world.
That's true.
Yeah, they're gonna have better than perfect relationships. I feel it. So
True.
But yeah, if you want to email us at betterthanperfectpodcast@gmail.com. And yeah, you want to tell us your life story problems, we'll talk about them. We'll solve them. Or
we'll be nice.
Come in person.
I'll be nice.
Yeah.
I can't. John might get a little tough.
Yeah, I'll be good. Give you some tough love. I'll tell you,
But
stop
you're still
being
nice
a little,
about it. Dude, don't
I
say
won't
it.
say that. Okay.
Okay.
All right. That's it. We'll see you next time.
Through every fall